You start by wrapping Teflon tape around your pipe threads. Make sure you wrap all the threads covered at least 2, possibly 3 wraps with the Teflon. This will aid in spinning on your fitting by lubricating your threads. Teflon wrap is not a sealer. Now you have Teflon wrap on your pipe threads. Now it's time to put thread compound on the threads of the female adapter. Put a good heavy coating on all the threads from the front to the back. Don't leave any threads uncovered. Any water that can get in the threads will end up rotting the pipe thread out if you didn't have the Teflon wrap there. Once you get this completely done and all the threads are covered up evenly, then what you do is you screw on the female pipe adapter onto your stub pipe coming out of the wall. Be sure that when you're doing this, if you're using channel locks, not to over tighten it, because you will split this adapter. Turn it on really tight with your hands and then give it a good crank afterwards. Most food disposals come with a 90, as you see here. Remove it and use a flange tailpiece. This is a section of a straight flange tailpiece. It's about 6 inches in length. It's much easier to fit your garbage disposal with this than trying to use the 90. The configuration for doing a 90 is very difficult and uses more fittings. So just use a straight flange piece. Now I just stick on a trap adapter onto the vertical tailpiece coming off the basket. And then I do the same thing onto the waste disposal side. Just slide another pipe adapter right onto it. These make 100% seals when they're turned down. They are not a slip joint. They are more of a compression fitting than anything else. I highly recommend using these over slip joints because they don't have expansion and contraction issues such as slip joints. To measure, you want to measure between the flanges and then add 1 inch because each flange takes up an inch space. Cut your piece of ABS, fit it on, and then you can adjust the elevation so you're slightly below level on the combo side of that drain. Again, to measure, you just measure between the flanges. Each flange takes up a ½ inch, so this one here would be about 3½ inches, so you'd make it 4½ inches in length. Once you cut your piece of ABS, slide it onto the garbage disposal side, compressing it all the way into the union, and then pull it over to the combo side, pressing that all the way in, and then tighten up both of the white nuts. What I'm doing here is adjusting the elevation from the garbage disposal to the combo drain. You want a slight change of elevation. You want the water to run out of your garbage disposal. You don't want the elevation from the P-trap into the drain into the wall too great because then it'll actually siphon the water out of the P-trap, letting vapors back into the apartment. What I'm doing here is measuring from the female adapter to the 90. You want to measure from the edge of the flange to the edge of the flange and then add 1 inch because each flange takes up a ½ inch. Cut your pipe, twist off that 90, put the pipe into the 90, and then put it in the female adapter, rolling it up to fit into the pipe that goes to the P-trap. Again, check the elevation on this, making sure that you have a slight downhill to the drain, but not too much because, like I said, it'll siphon all the water out of the P-trap, and then you'll have sewer gases coming up into your house or apartment. Again, we need to measure these two distances. So all you do is you just push the tape against the flange, and then whatever it reads at the bottom, which looks like 4 3/4, you just add 1 inch. Once you have your measurement, you can use a tubing cutter as seen here. If you use a hacksaw, it'll leave a fuzzy edge. You need to clean all that fuzzy edge up so it's smooth. Those fuzzy edges on the inside of the pipe will attract debris to it and then cause a clog later on. So clean up all the fuzzy edges. Once you got your ABS cut to the length you need, disconnect your P-trap by unscrewing the flange. Push your pipe all the way to the bottom of the flange and then push it into the combo. Once you get it pressed into the combo, swing it around and push it up into the flange on the P-trap going to the waste drain. Don't over tighten this flange fitting. Never use a pair of channel locks on it. Over tightening will only cause you problems down the road. Here's everything all dry fitted. You want to make sure to dry fit, take your time, don't rush it. Everything should come apart and go back together just as it was when you fit it. Now we can begin gluing. Here's a little trick I learned. I'd like to show you before we get started gluing. As you pull the stopper up, squeeze it against the inside of the can. This squeegees off all the excess glue. You don't need it to be running with glue in order to use it. It just has to be moist. When you finish in between fittings, rest it on the edge of the can so it's ready to go again. 2 or 3 times you can usually get one fitting without having to redunk it. You don't need to pull it out like this and drip it all over your can. Just squeegee it off on the inside of the threads, pull it all the way out, and you're ready to glue. Keeping your can clean will save you time when it gets time to glue. So you're not chasing down channel locks trying to get your can open. Okay, now we're ready to glue. First thing is break your P-trap apart. Pull the pipe out of the pipe adapter out of the wall. Then you take your swab that you've squeegeed off against the threads on the inside of the can and you run it around the inside of the female about 2 or 3 times. Taking your pipe, pushing it inside, swinging it up, and landing on that P-trap index. Square it up, let it sit. Now you break the second joint off the fitting. You do the same thing with this one. Take your swab, run it around 2 or 3 times. Put the pipe on the end of the pipe coming out of the wall. Swing it down until it lands on top of the index, which is your P-trap. Everything should fit square every time. On to the next fitting. Take your swab, run it around inside of this. 1, 2, 3. Push your pipe together. Set it down on the index. Let it sit. Take off the 90. Trying to set this up so I can get you guys to see how I'm gluing this. Wiped off the excess. Run it around on the inside 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Put it on the pipe. The index goes right down on top of that 90. Bring up the locking nut, but don't use pipe wrenches on it. You don't want to over tighten this flange nut. It will pop right off and then you'll have a broken P-trap. Here's some pipe I found out of a building that was built back in the 70s. They didn't use Teflon wrap back in the day. They only used hard set pipe thread compound. They didn't use enough thread compound, otherwise the threads would all be there. Water runs underneath of it and rots them out. When you're using pipe thread compound, buy soft set. This allows you to be able to tear the pipe apart 20 years later, along with Teflon wrap. When you're doing a garbage disposal, use a combo drain. That's the fitting in my right hand. Don't use a sanitary T. When you turn the disposal on, water will fly up the opposite drain. This here is a flange tailpiece. Use this on the crossover pipe and also coming out of the opposite sink basket. This piece of ABS will fit that pipe right inside of it. That's why those slip joint drains don't drain very fast. When you're using true ABS, 1.5 inches, you have a lot less chance for drains to clog because the water is being ran out much quicker. These are ABS drains. Does your slip joint drain that fast? I don't think so.